So this is episode 12 in my series entitled Spiritual Lessons from the Wright Brothers. I have a new audience in front of me. There's a few similar faces, but a lot of new faces that are joining this series at episode 12. And of course, if you're a dutiful Ellerslie student, you knew you were going to come to the Alumni Summit, you would have been listening to all previous 11 before you got here. But I won't ask you to raise your hand if you have stayed faithful. Of course, some of you are like, no, ask, because I want to raise my hand. But this has been a very, very enjoyable series. And I do feel that today's episode can sort of just stand alone. It's a meditation in and of itself, even if you know nothing about the Wright brothers. This storyline, though, is truly remarkable. The very first episode, I said, the entire summation of the series is staring down the impossible and winning. And it's the essence of the Christian life. And it's sort of the theme of even our week, if you want to say it that way, is staring down the impossible and winning. That we have a faith that is a victorious, super conquering faith, that we are not bullied around by the devil and his agenda. It doesn't matter what mountains he stands in our way, we know our God is greater. So I'm going to dive into this message, and even though I'm not going to do a full recap, I'll sort of save that for the next episode, which you guys will be here for too, where I'll sort of catch us up in the storyline. I mean, I do need to at least share where we're at. We're in the early 1900s. The invention of flight, if you know the Wright brothers, is going to take place December 17th, 1903. We are in 1902, I would say, so we still haven't even gotten to the invention of flight, and we've gone through a lot of different crises, different challenges, different impossibilities. We had the dogpiling of the devil, to discourage these guys. Wilbur Wright actually at one point in time says this will never happen in 1,000 years. And so then he's going to get back up on the horse, like the good Christian has to. It's like, okay, I see where I'm headed, and yes, I was discouraged, but I'm not going to allow discouragement to hold me down. So we've had a lot of great terrain to go through already. It's been super inspirational. And we haven't even gotten to the invention of flight. And what's funny is when you get to the invention of flight, I would almost say it this way, the real battle begins, because now no one believes them. They did it in the middle of nowhere in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Now no one believes it. Now they have to prove it to the world. It's very interesting, sort of like the resurrection of Christ, where it's just like those closest are like, he rose again. It's like, well, prove it. I didn't see him. And it's like, well, God, why are you up in heaven now? If you were here, I could show you off. And so unique tensions that are in the future. This particular message it's almost like a sideline message where I'm going to go to the side and I'm going to give it. It does involve the Wright brothers, but I don't know. It's like it was too juicy for me to pass up the opportunity. And it's called The Diary of Daring Do. Fun title name, by the way. I really like it. And so I need to describe for you what daring do is. Technically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It just doesn't look right when you see it written. I mean, daring, D-E-R-R-I-N-G, is like a weird spelling for the word daring. It actually is the ancient spelling of the word daring that we know. And so daring do is exactly what you would expect. It means daring achievements, heroic deeds, brave actions, feats of great courage. And so this is the diary of that. The Wright brothers are going to actually establish in 1902 an official diary of their invention. And that is going to be one of the most important things in history. It's the first time that anyone had ever captured, not in just written form, but also in photographic form, because this is right at the advent of photography. And so we're going to get this invention in its incremental parts. Pretty extraordinary thing that's going to unfold. Benjamin Franklin made this statement. Now, technically, I'm accrediting it to Benjamin Franklin. I've accredited this statement to multiple people over the years. I did a deeper dive. It's like, who actually said this? Because I've actually given this, credited it to a few different people over the years. I really like the quote, but I figured I better get down to actually who said it. And I'm not totally sure, 100% sure it was even Ben Franklin, but most people think it was Ben Franklin. It's one of those types of things where Google isn't helping you too much. Give me 26 lead soldiers and I'll conquer the world. In other words, give me a typewriter. Give me the ability to communicate with words. You can change the world that way. And it is an incredible statement. It's like the power of the pen. There's something there that actually is very significant, and that plays into this because that is part of the story. But just a meditation, just as we're getting going. The Wright Brothers' diary. It began September 8th, 1902, to chronicle all the daring do. That actually sort of rhymes. Let me read that again. Began September 8th, 1902, to chronicle all the daring do. Do you guys see that? I'm going to act like that was purposeful. The art of remembrance, a skill I desire to be great at. Each of us, if we were to sort of lay out, okay, skills. What is a skill you esteem and really want to be really, really, really good at? If you could pick one skill to be really, really, really good at, I don't know that many of us would think remembrance would be the skill. I'm choosing it though. And I'm saying if I could be a great rememberer, I could be a great man. It's like, that's how closely tied the two are. It's like, I know the value of it. Now, if you were to follow through my life, you're going to recognize that remembrance is a huge deal for me. You guys were here Sunday night and I gave a message, and I would say that was a message about remembrance without talking about remembrance. It just was the act of remembering. This is actually a message on remembrance. So not to be lost on you that that's a big theme this week. It's a big theme of what's going on in my life right now, that we've been going back through all of our old ministry letters, ministry videos, ministry cassettes, ministry photos, everything, all the stuff. We're just digging it up. We're getting it all scanned. We're getting it converted into digital. We're getting this stuff so it's accessible. It's been very fun. Wedding video. We showed in this last semester the first time Leslie and I ever sat down, this was before we were married by even like a year and a half, I think, and sat down and actually shared our love story, like what God was doing in our life. And it's like you have this young, awkwardly young Eric and Leslie, but the purity in it is it's so special to look back on this. I just dug into my same closet this morning, my closet in my office, and I found my first journal. Not my first. I had a journal when I was like a little kid, like 7, right? So that doesn't count. This is my first journal in my spiritual life. So we're at the top, it says New Beginning, February 2nd, 1990. And I actually read that first entry just this morning. So this is all very fresh for me. I don't have it included here. I almost did. I was like pondering at should I not? And I decided not to. It was just going to take too much time, and I had to pick my battles this morning. But the art of remembrance, a skill I desire to be great at. So I have some remembrances, and you're going to see Eric Ludy and his father's side coming out in this because it's like just too good to pass up. Like I said, this theme is like one of my favorites. So here's some musings on heaven from Avi Ludy at the age of 9, okay, back in 2019. If everyone in history is at Judgment Day, it'll probably be really crowded. I mean, we will be standing shoulder to shoulder with everyone. Does Jesus ever get off his throne in heaven? I hope so, because if he doesn't, he won't be able to play chase with me. I will just have to play board games with him instead. All right, we got some more. So what I'm probably going to do when I first get to heaven is go and sit on Jesus' lap and ask him all my questions that Daddy couldn't answer. That will probably take a few hours. I'll probably have a special spot in heaven where I can sit and talk to him, and I won't have to wait for Jesus because he is everywhere. My first question is going to be, how has God always been? My second question is going to be, how did he make heaven to never end? And how does he make himself perfect? And will I be in heaven for 1 billion years or more? Isn't this precious? I mean, this is like pure, unadulterated preciousness that I've bottled up, and now I have, on the shelf of my life. It's like I can take it off and take a sip from it. It's like, oh, there it is again. I mean, it's just amazing. I got some more. I think I'll probably cry in heaven when I think about people who are in hell. Since the Bible says that Jesus wipes away all the tears from our eyes, maybe I'll cry a lot and he'll just keep wiping away my tears. See, this is the stuff that I guarantee you forget if you don't write it down. It is a strange propensity for us to say, I'll never forget that, and then the first thing we do is forget it. And so how powerful it is to actually contain, maintain, and hold on to these precious things in our life. The art of remembrance. It's a skill that God desires all of us to be great at. The amount of communication that God has in his word to commission us to remember is unusually high. We are commissioned to remember. It's a funny thing, but I think we don't exercise the thought thinking we have to put any effort into that. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll remember. We don't remember without effort. That is what is interesting to me, and I've discovered it over the years. It's like my good intentions don't cause me to remember. I actually have to proactively, strategically set up my life to remember, otherwise I forget. Learning to pile stones, exercising the ancient tradition. So we've done that many times at Ellerslie. In fact, when we're remembering even a semester, we'll say, hey, guys, let's pile up some stones. In fact, we've even had semesters that have gone out and found stones outside and made little piles here. I'm like, guys, we are cleaning this up, right? However, I mean, we don't have to do it literally, but that's what they used to do in the ancient culture, is to literally pile stones to demonstrate anytime you see that pile, it's supposed to trigger a memory. So here's our reference in Joshua 4:5-7. Joshua said to them, cross over before the ark of the Lord your God in the midst of the Jordan, and each one of you take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel. So this may be a sign among you when your children ask in time to come, saying, what do these stones mean to you? Then you shall answer them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it crossed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial to the children of Israel forever. So there is a necessary step that we take in life to actually pick up a stone and to make a pile so that when we once again review that scene in our life, it triggers memory, so that we rehearse what God has done. Why would that matter? Why does it matter that we remember what God did? It has everything to do with the cultivation of our faith. The enemy plays upon our lack of remembrance. He surfs upon our lack of remembrance and is able to accomplish dastardly deeds in our life because we fail to remember the faithfulness of our God, the goodness of our God, the fact that when we have trusted in him, he has always performed. We must hold on to that. To remember, it does not happen accidentally. It is the result of a purposeful strategy. So if you could extract anything from this entire message, it would be that. You know what I'm going to do? This is your bubble thought. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up a purposeful strategy to remember what God does in my life. And I would say, bingo, there you go. That's what you need to do. I have elaborate systems in my life to hold on to memory. If you saw how I even do my studying, and if I were to click on my little file structure on my computer, you're going to see that every research thing, every study I do, I organize it and I have it in a certain spot. So if I ever come back to a certain theme, I know where to look. And I can dig up my notes for that, and I can extract everything I've even studied, everything that God's ever spoken to me through his word. So I organize it, and that's how I have thousands and thousands of files that I've organized with all my different study points and all my different messages, which are many, 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 so that I can the reason I title my messages, guys, is to remember them. So when you see me get excited about a title, it's because I'm remembering the title even now, so that in the years to come, I can recall that. It's a bucket. That title becomes a bucket where I can stick memory in it. Journaling. Write this down from a memorial in a book. So that's God's statement to Moses. This is how the Bible starts. God actually tells Moses to write down what he just experienced on Mount Sinai, write it down for a memorial in a book. So isn't that an interesting thing to think that the Bible is like Moses' journal? I mean, you could say it that way. It's a really sort of odd way to say it. But that God is going to actually exhort Moses to write it down. So I'm just going to say to us, that sounds like a great idea for all of us. So here's some different things that the Ludy family does. Songs. So Leslie and I have written many, many songs. We used to write songs to actually commemorate things, wrote songs to our kids, wrote songs to each other. We have all sorts of songs that take a truth that God has revealed to us and we turn it into a song. Poems, photo albums, quote collections, which is, you just heard one of our quote collection from Abby at the age of 9, memory trunks, Scraps is something that is actually from an Amy Carmichael tradition, where her family, she would every month put together like a newspaper that were the memories of their family. And so we've done that in the past. Books, well, we write books. That's not the typical thing that most families do, but we do that. Audio dramas. I do have audio dramas, believe it or not. And a DAC board. I don't know if you guys know what a DAC board is. That's like Kleenex. It's a specific name for something. But we have a board, a screen in our kitchen that's, I don't know, about 2 feet by 1.5 feet. I don't know, somewhere like that. And it has a rotating, I think we have close to 3,000 pictures from Ludy family history that are constantly rotating through all day, all night. And everyone in the family just always glances up on it. It's a constant rehearsal and remembrance of our fondest moments on the earth. Very special. So I've had something there and I didn't read it. The many ways we hold on to the wonder of God's faithfulness. So the Wright Brothers' diary. This is going to become one of the most crucial things in this entire storyline. Actually, it's not a very exciting thing technically to just talk about their diary. And if you see what's in their diary, it's not actually that stupendous to read. I'm going to read you their very first entries, and you'll probably fall asleep in that little segment, which is why we're not going to go much deeper than that. A lot of it is scientific just observations. They're just observing things. They're doing things. They're chronicling what they're doing so they can remember themselves and also be able to pass it on in the future. So it began September 8th, 1902 to chronicle the momentous process. So Monday, September 8th, 1902, we have our first journal entry in the Diary of Daring Do for the Wright Brothers, and I have it on the screen right now. Isn't this fun? Finally began work on machine. Completed frame of upper service, wing ready for ribs. Boy, is that exciting. Tuesday, September 9th, 1902, worked 8 hours on machine, fastened ribs to frame and put on cloth. Wednesday, September 10th, 1902, worked about 5.5 hours each, tacking and sewing on cloth, surface complete except for covering, for part of covering to rear spar. Thursday, September 11th, 1902, completed covering of rear spar, erected poles for testing angles at various velocities of wind, began work on lower surface in afternoon, spliced spars and fastened on end bows, ready for attaching ribs. You guys are gripped. I know. This is one of the most exciting things you've ever heard. Friday, it's not going to go on much longer. Just bear with me. Friday, September 12th, 1902, worked 8 hours on each machine, put on ribs and cloth, took upper surface on Big Kill Devil Hill a little before noon. Find that much better results are found by walking the machine. Saturday, September 13th, 1902, finished lower surface. Sunday, actually, this should be Monday, September 15th. Sorry, guys, they actually skipped Sunday. But I'm throwing you off with that. I thought they were going to do Sunday, so I put it down. But it was actually Monday, September 15th, 1902, worked 10 hours each. So well done, guys. They actually took off Sunday. Good Chick-fil-A. They would have loved Chick-fil-A. So that was Orville Wright's official invention diary. Now, that's not exciting, and they weren't very good at writing anything down when they started. I'm just going to be honest. That isn't very interesting to read. Not many people in history are going to be that fascinated, other than to say, this is the first week of using their diary. However, if you see the first weeks of me using my diary, or journal, I didn't call it a diary. That was very specific for me. I don't write a diary. I write a journal. But it's actually not that engaging either, because you're learning to coordinate what is going on inside of you with this external expression. And it is a coordination. The reason that Leslie and I both became writers is because both of us had journals. That's actually, if you were to ask very specifically, how did you develop your writing? I would say far more than anything that happened in our schooling, our academic, it was learning to coordinate ideas, thoughts, experiences into the written word. To make that coordination actually was the secret for both of us. Both of us did it voluminously. I mean, I have stacks. If you were to stack all of our journals together, it would probably be like, a 7-foot stack of just paper. That's how much we have written in a way that we don't intend anyone to probably ever read except ourselves, right? And so, but that is our exercise for writing. The Wright brothers utilized photography to supply a visual understanding of the process. So here's just 4 of their, many, many hundreds of photos that they took. And photography was very unusual. This is actually their spot in Kitty Hawk. They built this little shed, And this is developed like 2 or 3 years into their time there. At first, they just had a tent. And so this is more of the 1903 probably version of it. This is the crash probably at the end of 1901. I'm not positive if you guys remember their sour experience in 1901, but they had a lot of crashes and they had to rebuild the whole thing. This is their unit in Kitty Hawk. And this picture is a little confusing to me. I'm not sure how it was taken or, so it's made me wonder if it's real. And this one supposedly is real, but I don't know if you guys can sort of follow along with me. When you see a photo, you never know anymore. You're like, wait a minute. If someone typed into some AI thing, picture of the Wright brothers from 1902, of Orville taking a picture. It's like, yeah. I still have at least a question mark, but this could be genuine. Russell Friedman, he had a book called The Wright Brothers, How They Invented the Airplane. The airplane has been called the earliest great invention to be fully documented by photography. Wilbur and Orville Wright wanted to leave a detailed pictorial record of their work. While they were making history as inventors, they were recording that history with a camera. Russell Friedman continues, in 1900, photography became a deliberate part of their aeronautical research. They photographed each phase of their experiments, carefully noting the subject, date, place, camera setting, type of negative, and other details for every picture. Studying the photos helped them to analyze their experiments and learn from their mistakes. Sometimes, listen to this line here, sometimes a photo would reveal phenomena that the pilot and observers might not otherwise have noticed. Here's what this is a fascinating thing that I just want to bring to the surface. When I write down or I capture in some way, whether it's through photography or whether it's through a poem or whether it's through a journal entry, there's a lot of options that I look at as available to me to capture and to chronicle what God does in my life. Then when I look back on it, it's strange, but I see things that I didn't see when I walked through it. You're going to see the same phenomenon happen with the Wright brothers. That they experience something, they capture it, and then upon further looking, they actually see other details, especially when they're looking for angles of wings and various things to see how flight works. Their photography is actually going to be one of their secrets to success. Wilbur Wright said this, the excitement of the gliding experiments does not entirely cease with the breaking up of camp. Listen to what gets him excited. In the photographic darkroom at home, we pass moments as thrilling as any in the field. When the image begins to appear on the plate, and it is yet an open question whether we have a picture of a flying machine or merely a patch of open sky. And they love this process of being in the darkroom to actually remember what they have gone through. That is like, if I could put words to the very thing that I go through when I open up an old journal, when I look through old pictures, when I watch an old video that we captured on purpose so that we would not forget. It is thrilling. What a strange thing to call thrilling. Remembrance is thrilling. Russell Friedman continues, Wilbur and Orville were deeply aware of the historical importance of this photographic record. The Wrights left over 300 glass plate negatives and hundreds of prints that record the invention of the airplane. Many of the glass plates were damaged during the disastrous Dayton flood of 1913 when they were submerged in water for several days and suffered from peeling emulsion. Oh, that's not good. To remember, this is one of those online types of definitions, using effort to recall an idea, to bear or keep in mind, to preserve the memory of, to preserve from being forgotten. Well, that's pretty good. Look at that top one, though. Using effort to recall an idea. If I could give you guys a piece of advice, don't just hope that you remember something. Write it down. When Hudson and I are working on a story, which we were doing yesterday, we're brainstorming. We're in a mode of idea creation, and we have some really good ideas. And one of the things I know to do is to sit down at my computer and make sure I put that idea, even though, of course, I would never forget it, into an actual paragraph form. Not even just a bullet form, because the idea isn't formed yet. I need the full idea, even if it's poorly written. I just need to get it out, because ideas are sacred. You don't just take them for granted as if they'll just come back. You want to make sure that you hold on to them. Remember the days of old. Isn't that a great statement in Scripture in Deuteronomy 32:7? Remember the days of old. Now, you could hear that and it could make no impact on you whatsoever. But if you recognize that this is part of the principle of the kingdom of heaven, to remember the days of old. Now, for some of you, you're like, well, I'm not very old. That's okay. For you, it's old, right? When you go back 20 years in your life, some of you aren't even born yet, so maybe I should go back a few less years than that. You go back, okay, some of you are even younger than that. I go back 2 years in your life, and it's old to you. The pull-up competition, does it bait you too? So we were at a graduation, and it was in a gym. It was a CrossFit athlete, and so his high school graduation was in a gym. And I came in, and all these guys were in the back corner doing pull-ups, and everyone was testing. It was like 1, 2, 3. And I tell you what, that is like torture for me, because that's what I want to do. It's like I want to go over and do some pull-ups. And if you ever see someone jump up and try and touch like a basketball rim, it's just like, well, then I want to jump up and try and touch the basketball rim. I don't know what it is and what that phenomenon is, and maybe it doesn't infect everyone. It definitely is a thing for me. That's why I'm asking the question, does it bait you too? If I see guys doing push-ups, I want to get down and do push-ups. I don't like having people do push-ups and I don't get a chance to do push-ups. Now, some people might think that's totally crazy, but there is something to that, of seeing someone exercise something. I'm going to exercise. Well, I'm getting all excited about the Wright Brothers remembering, so I want to remember. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start doing some pull-ups, and not really, push-ups in front of you guys, jumping up and trying to touch a basketball rim. And so what I want to inspire all of you to do is to say, he can't just get away with doing that. I want to do it too. That's exactly right. I want you to do some remembrance too. So I want to do some remembering. After all, it's one of my favorite things to do. So the supernatural, this is just me remembering. The supernatural reconciliation. My brother and I experienced a rare brotherly breakthrough. At Ellerslie, when I go through the Spirit of the Humble, I share the story of my brother and I had this older brother pride, and it's quite the amazing supernatural breakthrough when you have two brothers that are willing to give up their pride and actually hug at the end, all by themselves without any parental involvement, right? This is only Holy Spirit involvement. I mean, my brother and I are going to baptize one another in the tub. I mean, we have, it's a remarkable season. He's going to go on the mission field with me, and it's something that is hard to put words to. It was so supernatural, and I don't ever want to forget it. So I actually did by the way, is this connected to audio if I click on audio here? I have to make sure that we are ready for this, because I do have something else with audio too. Sorry about that, Andrew, that I'm just telling you now. Okay, so this is in 1998. So the thing with my brother, the reconciliation took place in like 1991. And here we are in 1998. I want to chronicle what God did. So I'm going to write an audio drama, which is sort of like a mixture between like Adventures in Odyssey and Jungle Jam and Friends. It's really funny. And it's called Life with Marky. And so this is just the intro. Technically, I forgot to listen to it to figure out what is in this. But here's Life with Marky intro. Welcome to a Ludy Land adventure. Life with Marky. All right, guys, doesn't that get you? Now you guys are into it. See, this is just me remembering. Hudson's like, okay, when we do our company, we need to use that as our official audio logo. I mean, that's just great. It's like all retro. The outrageously beautiful love story. I don't want to ever forget what God did in my love story with Leslie. And if you've hung around us or you know us from history past, we chronicled all of this. And we kept journal entries of all of it. We have all of our love letters that we wrote back and forth. Elaborate, dimensionality. I drew all sorts of pictures and poems and songs were written. And so I think I have some pictures. I think I have one picture. This is Leslie and I. It's sort of a funny picture on the screen here, but this is us right before we were married. So this is like days before we were married. So I didn't do a wedding picture because that's predictable. The adoption of Harper, one of the most momentous occasions in our life. We're going to have a miscarriage, and then God is going to stir in our hearts the passion for the weak and the least, and we're going to say, God, we want to serve in whatever way. What do you want us to do? and he's going to lead us into an adoption agency. I didn't think it was so that we would adopt. That wasn't even in my head. I mean, I thought only people that couldn't have children adopted. I mean, I didn't know that it wasn't even something in my brain. And God is going to work a miracle. I mean, it's just an incredible story. I'm not going into it, but I do have a picture of Harper just having come home, very, very young. We were at Disneyland, and Eeyore fell in love with Harper. Harper had a little Eeyore that she would carry around all growing up after this experience. So I think she liked Eeyore too. The adoption of Kipling. So one adoption, I guess, wasn't enough for the Ludys. And so this story is going to just be an extraordinary turn of events. It's actually going to not just lead to Kipling coming into our life, but Dan, Sandy, and Grace coming into our life. And because Grace was close friends with Bex, who was pregnant in a very difficult situation. And so she had come out to Colorado to live with the McConaughey's. And so when we encountered Bex, and I make my awkward statement that's like, we can take this baby. It's like, and Leslie's like, did you actually say that to her? It's like, I did. I don't know why I said it. But it's an incredible story, guys, the adoption of Kip. And so Leslie's pregnant with Abby at this time. We were in Southern California in this picture, and there's little baby Kip being lugged around. Very precious memories. The incredible launch of Ellerslie. The story behind Ellerslie, the formation of Ellerslie, 17 years of prayer for Ellerslie, all amazing. I'm not going into that. But here's a journal entry. Now you can see sort of how my journal works. When something magnificent is happening, I'll always have this little graphic for a pile of stones, and then I'll have a title. I title every journal entry, and this one was called Ellerslie. I know that sounds like a very creative title. However, this is the first time I ever used the word, okay? It was on this journal entry. And then I'll write about the day. You'll see in brackets, February 2nd, 2009, which is my spiritual birthday. February 3rd is when I'm writing this, Tuesday, 7:28 p.m. in Dana Point, California. So here's the journal entry. Once again, February 2nd was magical. The entire day was distinct and full of beauty. It was a stunning 80-degree day of sunshine in Southern California. The whole Ludy troop packed up and made their way down to the Salt Creek beach, while Hudson and Harper played in the sand and Kip slept in his little bassinet. Leslie, Annie, and I had read nearly 3 chapters aloud of the Scottish Chiefs. It was the scene when Edwin was first introduced. Even the content that we read yesterday seemed significant to my life and calling into this newly budding idea known to us as Ellerslie School of Honor. We met with Mike and Krista last night. Do you guys know Mike and Krista Hahn? Yeah. We met with Mike and Krista last night and thoroughly enjoyed a 7-hour conversation with them. For possibly the very first time, we began to see clearly. The ideas of the School of Honor and the Orphan Choir were gelling last night. It was an extraordinary conversation that seemed to be governed by grace. There has been a great resistance to us communicating clearly on this point and to us knowing what we are supposed to be doing with our time and energies. But it seemed that last night was a breakthrough. Over the fall, we saw a change in pattern in our lives. No more miscarriage of ideas. The planning weekend that Leslie and I had back in September was followed through on to a degree that before in our life was unheard of. We feel strongly that we can plan and see God enable unto implementation. And this situation needs God unto implementation. We need that Bible college. By the way, that Bible college is known as the Ellerslie campus now. And Lord, we are confident that we can't get it in our own strength. We need you to work the deal. Glorify your name, O Most High, and do wonders and mighty exploits in this earth. Psalm 111:4. He has made his wonderful works to be remembered. So if God does wonderful works, he made those wonderful works to be remembered. And if we know that remembrance is an action on our part, that means he does the wonderful works. That's his job. Our job is to remember his wonderful works. 1 Corinthians 11:24, in the context of the communion, Last Supper, do this in remembrance of me. So why do we do what we do? Why do we celebrate God in the way we do? Why do we do the actions strategically, even in the church? We purposely and strategically do what we do so that we would not forget. The function of human memory. I've taught human memory for years. It's actually, we used to actually plan on doing it, I think in the advanced training, wasn't that the goal? And somewhere along the line, it's just like, well, it doesn't really fit in tremendously well. We have done exercises, we have taught, some of you may have even been around when we did. But for me, memory is a big deal. If you guys know, you'll show up at Ellerslie. Names are very, very important to us here. but that's all part of the memory thing. People, the moment that there's certain people that will say, I'm terrible with names. I can't remember names. And here's what I say back to that. If you say that, I guarantee you'll be terrible with names and you can't remember names. I mean, rule number one in life, the moment you decry your remembrance as being pitiful, it will prove to be pitiful. Now, I'm not saying your memory is great. Memory is like a new baseball glove. So a new baseball glove, if any of you ever played baseball, is stiff leather. It's like, who made this thing? How in the world could someone catch? Someone throws a ball at you and it's so stiff you can hardly, it's just like the ball could bounce off. So what you do is you rub oil in it. You work it. You throw a ball into it over and over and squeeze. Some people drag it behind their car, stomp on it. They're trying to wear down the leather to soften it so it can grip. But you catch. And after a while, that leather becomes soft and malleable to your hand and fits it like a glove, right? That's actually that's the term right there. And so you can catch, when you have a worn-in glove, you can catch a ball in the top little half inch, on the very corner. It's going over the wall. It was going to be a home run, but you snagged it. How did you snag that? It's because you've worn in the glove. Your memory is just like that. If you say you can't catch anything, it's because it's probably hard leather. You haven't worked it in. You start working your memory, and it's amazing. Anyone in here could have a great memory. Anyone. We all have the glove. We just need to exercise it. And yes, there are certain turkeys out there that start with a head start and seem to have the ability to remember everything without even trying. We'll just call those cheaters, right? But most of us have to work in the glove. So Proverbs 10:7, the memory of the righteous is blessed. So that's actually not talking about memory like we're talking about, but I figured we could, squint and maybe use it for our advantage. That's talking about that when we live a good life, a righteous life, then the memory that we have lived of that life is blessed. However, just imagine if we look at it a little different. It's like your memory is blessed because you're righteous in Christ. Acts 20:35, remember the words of the Lord Jesus. So we are being commissioned to remember, which means we need to activate that memory. So I want to do some more remembering. You guys enjoying all this remembering? This is fun stuff. Boy, I'm having a thrill ride up here. This is one of my favorite things is to remember. One of my favorite things with my family, and you'll see me, I'll do it with you guys too. It's like, okay, highlights. What do we remember? I always want to get highlights. And so, we had this one trip where we had just started out the trip and I was like, highlights. They're like, highlights? And so all we had done is basically pulled out of the driveway and, probably squabbled as we were doing it because that's famous, like trying to get out on a trip. It's like, that's where we've learned as a family, you have to pre-pray for packing. You cannot pray after you pack. You have to pray before you pack. Say, okay, guys, everyone on red alert. We're just about to start packing and go on a trip, and you guys know what that means, right? So everyone needs to be highly sensitized. So that's all we've done is sort of squabble, get in the car. We had gone over a significant bump, and the kids were watching a video in the back, and it had flickered off, so we had to restart it up. That had happened, and we went to a gas station. And so I was like, highlights. And so I think the highlight that won was when the screen flickered off and we had to restart. That was our highlight so far. But still, highlights, let's get in the groove, guys. We're going to be remembering on this trip. Let's remember all that God does. And it's a fun thing to do. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do some more remembering. After all, it's one of my favorite things to do. So I have a lot of fun pictures that I've put together over the years. So this is Kip at one of those kid farms, where you can interact with the animals. And there was a goat. And so this is called the attack of the mean old goat. So he had something in the bag. I don't remember what it was that you feed to the animals. I know it was some kind of seed or whatever. But goats, they're sort of rude. I'm just going to be honest with you. And when they see a vulnerable character like Kip, they're going to take full advantage of it. And so you can see the goat is actually going to take the entire bag from Kip, which I don't have the shot of that. And you're going to see Kip, he's just not doing well by shot 4. So if you're getting this via podcast, there's 4 shots and of succession. And Kip is trying to save his bag, and then his bag gets taken. The goat eats the paper bag along with it. So it was a pretty funny moment. And you're going to say, where were you? Well, I was taking pictures. So 2013, 12 years ago, we have Hudson at age 8, So Leslie would always use, I think it was in her magazine. I'm not positive where these were, but I have them in sort of my Evernote. I have an online Evernote thing where I can do, quotes from the kids or like Hudson quotes or anything like that, and it'll come up. So this is a Hudson quotes from 2013. He's age 8. He got his braces. Actually, they're only on his 2 front teeth, but every time I look at him now, I do a double take because he suddenly looks like a teenager. This is Leslie writing. Or at least a 12-year-old, which is weird because he still acts like an 8-year-old. He also had to have 2 teeth pulled, which I was concerned would be a big ordeal, but all I had to do was offer a reward of some new Legos if he did well, and success was in the bag. He didn't even flinch when they gave him a shot of Novocaine. I wish us adults could be motivated by new Legos the same way when it comes to dental work. This is Harper at age 6. That's not Harper, by the way, just in case you're wondering. That's Gracie, her dog, which is it's a funny, special part of her life. Harper, age 6, her love language is if someone shows love and affection for her little dog, Gracie. This is kind of a problem for me, this is Leslie talking, because I don't really love dogs and I find it takes quite a bit of discipline to cuddle with them. However, when I come home after doing errands and attempt to greet Harper with a hug, she steps aside and says, "Hug Gracie first. She's so excited to see you." That's classic Harper. So in hugging Gracie, I'm actually hugging Harper. With Harper in the family, I'll have to become a dog person one way or another. And it's interesting because Leslie's a dog person now. And so dogs are a big part of our life, but that's how it started. It started with Gracie. Kip, age 4. He is catching a vision for all the great things he can do when he gets big. This is Leslie writing. He especially wants to be like Daddy when he gets big. Oh, that's good, bud. That's a good taste there. The other day while we were eating breakfast, he asked, "When I get big, can I baptize people and drink root beer like Daddy?" If you know anything about Eric Ludy and his pastoral role, he frequently baptizes, and he definitely loves root beer. Eric said, "Well, I guess that sums up my life pretty well." Kip, age 4. Kip is possibly our most quotable Ludy, along with Abby. They both have a lot of great quotes. I was changing his shirt, and he said, "Mommy, do you want to push my belly button?" I said, "Sure," and pretended I was pushing it like a button on an electronic toy. After I had pushed it 2 or 3 times, he said, "Don't push it over and over again. Do you know why?" I said, "No, why?" And he answered, "Because if you do, it'll run out of battery." What a funny little guy. Kip, age 4. In the car the other day, the kids were discussing how many inches tall they were. They were attempting to determine which of them was tall enough to ride certain rides at Disneyland. Kipling announced that he was going to inch himself, which presumably meant count how many inches tall he was. Then he attempted to use his hand to measure from his toes up to his head. After a few minutes of focused counting, he excitedly announced to everyone, "Guess what? I'm 9 inches tall." He was very happy to be such a big, tall boy. Kipling, age 4. The other day, he was speaking in a disrespectful tone, so I told him he'd better change his voice. He thought about what I'd said for a minute or two, and he began talking to me in a squeaky, high-pitched tone that made him sound like a cartoon character. "Dub, why are you talking that way?" I asked. "Because you told me to change my voice," was his matter-of-fact reply. So this is in kiddo stuff. I think this was in Leslie's magazine. I mean, that's my best guess here. So this is sort of the page right before this page that I'm going to show you. This is like Abby and Kip and their sayings. So Abby, age 4. The other day at breakfast, we were all going around and sharing our favorite kind of dogs. There were a variety of breeds mentioned, including Bernese Mountain Dogs, Cocker Spaniels, and mutts like Gracie. But when we got to Abby, she confidently declared, "My favorite kind of dog is a prairie dog." She honestly believed these little rodents to be dogs, and in her opinion, they are much cuter than other real dogs out there. Avonlea, age 4. Her giggle is contagious. Every night, as we were putting her to sleep, she seems to get a major giggle attack. The other night, I warned her sternly not to giggle while I was praying for her and tucking her in. She clapped her hands over her mouth and genuinely tried to stop, but it was no use. She buried her face in her pillow and tried to stifle her giggles, but they just kept coming. I was sure this was just a simple issue of getting self-control, but as I was trying to lecture her about it, I suddenly found myself giggling too. I was feeling a little like those characters in Mary Poppins who end up floating to the ceiling because they couldn't stop laughing. So then this is the year that Reese and Lily are coming into our life. And so this is something that Annie put together for us from Haiti. I think it was in the magazine too, of just our anticipation. I think that's a 2-page spread right there of Lily on one side on the left and Reese on the right. Isn't that precious? 2014. So Hudson, age 9. He has written a collection of illustrated stories which are actually quite good. One of them has a little boy daydreaming about various things he wants to be. I wish I could be a pirate, picture of the boy dressed as a pirate. Then, I wish I could be a king, picture of the boy dressed as a king. Then, I wish I could be an elephant, picture of an elephant with the boy's face. Then, no, I want to be, and then you lift the flap to see the next picture, me. Maybe it's just me, but I think this sounds like a children's book that would actually be published today. Isn't it interesting to just see Hudson, who now is a writer, even at the age of 9, just having that knack and having mama notice it in a situation like that. This is Hudson again. He wanted to know if he could take his passport and keep it in his room. I told him no, because if you lost your passport, that would be bad news. He paused to think about that for a minute, then asked me soberly, would it be in the newspaper? I told him it wouldn't quite be that kind of bad news. Another day, I told Hudson that he should not ride his scooter while eating a snack because it could be dangerous. He confidently informed me, oh, don't worry, I'm very talented at it. Hudson again. Hudson recently learned about National Cow Appreciation Day, which I had never heard of, but apparently takes place every year in July. He told me, I'm not exactly sure what people do on Cow Appreciation Day, but I guess it's when everyone who really loves hamburgers goes out and eats them to celebrate how good they taste. I'm not sure that eating hamburgers is really the true purpose of this national holiday. In fact, according to Chick-fil-A, it's the opposite. But Hudson, it seemed pretty obvious that stopping at Burger King would be the best way to show his appreciation for cows. Harper, at age 7. During the first real snowstorm of the season, the kids were looking out the window and really hoping for enough snow to build a snowman. Harper informed all of us very excitedly, I really hope this snowstorm turns into a blister. Translation, blizzard. Kip, age 5. Kip caught a fat frog in our backyard and named him Fred. After a few minutes of being carried around upside down by an excited little boy, Fred managed to escape and began hopping around near an electrical box behind our house. Kip was very concerned about Fred's safety and came running in the house yelling, hurry! We need to rescue Fred before he gets persecuted. Translation, electrocuted. Kip again. I'm going to invent a machine that buckles kids into their car seats so big people don't have to do it. A hand will come out of the car and automatically buckle me into my car seat. The hand will also give me a $100 bill every time it buckles me. Then I will take it home and put the money in a jar. Then I will wait until I'm a big person and use all that money to go to other countries and help orphans. Yeah, right when you thought he was greedy. I wrote a whole book about Kip's inventions. It's called Dub's Dandy Inventions. It's worth a read. It is a very, very precious book. He went on a rampage at the age of 5 with inventions. Kip again. 5-year-old Kipling, a.k.a. Dubber, recently accompanied us to an Ellerslie staff meeting. He was laying on the floor next to a chair coloring with some crayons when one of our staff members, Grace, noticed that he had scooted underneath the chair and seemed to be coloring on the underside of the seat. She corrected him and he adamantly denied the fact that he'd colored on the chair at all. Later, she turned the chair over to see whether there were any scribbles on it. Sure enough, in a huge scrawled crayon letters was the word Dubber. The poor little guy didn't quite think through the fact that his lie would be exposed by the overwhelming and incriminating evidence he left behind. Kip again. So this is translating Kip. It's hot. I need to put some sunscreen on my arms. My favorite kind of snake is a boa constrictor. Did astronauts used to be imaginated, but now they're real? I need to clean my hands. Can I have some sanitizer, please? Looks like this jar has allergy growing in it. Oh no, someone evangelized that building. Our trip is coming soon. I need to pack my soup case. Some animals like to evaporate for the winter. Avi, age 4. She has announced that the cutest person in our family is Daddy. She has also started calling Eric Sugar Daddy because he is allowed to eat sugary treats more than the kids do. She came up with that name completely on her own, and it always makes him think twice before indulging in a root beer or a piece of chocolate cake. Avi again at age 5. This is Avi at age 4. 4-year-old Avi somehow picked up the phrase Mrs. Smarty Pants. She and Harper have been calling each other Mrs. Smarty Pants when they're goofing around and being silly. The other day, after Avi and Harper had been jokingly calling each other by this name, Avi looked at me very seriously and asked, Mama, who is the real Mrs. Smarty Pants and where does she live? Abby decided she wanted to meet this intriguing and very smart person who was out there somewhere, and she wondered if I happened to know Mrs. Smarty Pants personally. So this is a letter written to Lily and Reese. I think I'm the one that wrote this. So Lily and Reese are stuck. We could not figure out how to get them home from Haiti. And so this is one of the letters along that journey. Daddy and Mommy miss you so much. Our love for you only grows with each passing day. It's like a balloon. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, but it never, ever will go pop. Miss Annie and Miss Harta are always telling us stories about you two, so we sit around as a family and read the stories. We laugh, we love, we cry, and we miss you even more. I can't wait to I can't wait to have you share with me your scriptures that you know. And won't it be fun to play hide and seek together? Or how about wrestle on the floor? Daddy loves to wrestle with his kiddos. Daddy built a stream, a fountain, and a pond in our backyard. Maybe we could splash in the stream and float boats in the pond. Or maybe we could jump on the jumping castle or dig in the sandbox. Or maybe you could rub Gracie the doggy's tummy. She would really like that. Or we could eat some eggs or chocolate chip cookies or even watch the dolphin tale together. Pretty soon the passports will be done and then we'll be even closer to coming to get you. I want you to know that Daddy thinks you both are two of the most special little people on earth, and I'm so excited to give you great big hugs and big juicy kisses. Keep praying. God is working to see this through. He will do it. Lots and lots of love, Daddy. So then I got a response from Lily. I love you, Daddy. I excited to splash in the stream. Does the sandbox have a sand crab? Seashells and sea crabs? Daddy, do you like dolphins? Are we going to watch Dolphin Tale? I'm praying for my passport to come. Lily and Bubba, that's her name for Reese, want to go to the plane. Thanks for my new room. Thank you, Daddy, for our letter. Thank you, Daddy, for my balloon love. In Jesus' name, amen. And then I got a response from Reese, too, not to be outdone. Hi, Daddy. It's my favorite to do Dolphin Tale. I want to fly a kite in the sky. I'm going to eat rice and beans. I eat my chocolate cookies. I want to go and make bubbles in the bucket. Blow bubbles in the bucket. I want to go to airplane. Yeah. I go explore at my new house in Colorado. I love you, Daddy. Okay, now who wouldn't keep that? But you have to exercise remembrance. You have to go back to the memories. There are seasons in life which are heavy, which are hard, which are weighty. But when you have a letter like that you review, you can go through almost anything. Our problem is we don't return to the goodness of God. We don't recall that which he has done. And so the weights of life crush us. It's interesting. Leslie and I have found this out when we were in the midst of the crushing weights of life in ministry. This is even before kids. We started doing a monthly video where we would take our life and put it behind music. So little video clips, no words spoken, just video clips, and put like some adventure music behind it or some happy music behind it. And then we had scraps is what we call them. I told you about that earlier, where we take our favorite quotes of the month, our favorite things that we did during the month, what happened around town. We had pictures of it all. If we went to something, like a show, we would shrink down what we did. And it was like we had little mementos of it. It made our life so fun. Our life still had all the heaviness, but we began to look at it with the right lens. When you remember the beauty in life, you think of your life as beautiful. When you don't remember the beauty of your life, all you see is the ugliness of it. It's a deliberate choice to remember. 2015, Abby, age 6. I wonder when the earth is going to burn up. I hope it doesn't happen soon because I might miss our next family vacation. Remember those years? And that's exactly, some of you are still thinking that thought. 2016, Abby, age 7, describing her future husband. This is great. He would need to be a Christian. He can't have a beard, nor can he have hair that sticks up. And he can't be too old. I think that's very reasonable. So here, Reese and Lily came home that year after 29 months. And this was us in the airport, everyone being together for the first time. That's Annie and Harda on the far right. And then that's Leslie's dad, Rich, and Janet, her mom, down there with Harper and Abby. Very special memories. 2017, I'm not going to go all the way up to 2025. This is almost the end. Why do they say, this is Kip, age 9. Why do they say the court is a germ? They should just use some germ spray before they start. I don't know that you guys fully appreciate that. That's funny. Lily at age 6, speaking to a new acquaintance. If you want to meet my mom, she's right downstairs. Her name is Mommy. 2018. So this is Avi. And I don't remember what this was for, but this is just some paper she was writing. I don't know if it was for school or what. A long time ago, Daddy was going to get married to Mama, but he did not have enough money to get her a ring because what would a wedding be without a ring? So later he reached into his coat pocket because he forgot something and he found a lot of money, just enough money to buy a ring. And with the money was a picture of a ring. I think the picture was there to make sure Daddy knew it was for a ring and not for junk food. I'm not exactly sure how I should interpret that. So this is from Avi to Lily. In the top left, it says, let God keep working in your life. And she says, Lily, I'm super happy that you gave your life to Jesus. So Lily had just given her life to Jesus. I'm super happy that you gave your life to Jesus. When I heard the news, I nearly started to cry. I'm so happy for you, and I think God will do great things in your life. I think you could be the most godly woman in the world. When you grow up, I am proud to have you as my sister. When you grow, so that was all one sentence. You could be the most godly woman in the world when you grow up. I am proud to have you as my sister. And then the far right corner says, God will do miracles in your life. Isn't that precious? Remember when? How are we doing time-wise? I still would like to do this. All right, so this is a video I made for our staff in 2013, I think. Does that sound about right? And if it's for the podcast, I'm going to read it out loud. It wasn't designed to be, it's designed to be watched. And so it's supposed to be a silent meditation. And so I think you guys will enjoy this. Some of it's going to be inside jokes. You're not going to get it, but that's part of memory too. You're just getting a peek into a lot of fun things, okay? So let's go through it. I'll read out loud what's on the screen. With great love to our beloved staff, Christmas 2013. Remember when? A retrospect. I used to always have a Christmas gift for the staff. Remember when? Over 20 years ago, Eric picked up a pencil and wrote down the vision for Men of Honor. Remember when? We gathered for prayer in the Runkles' living room and first laid this vision before the Almighty. Remember when? Annie first arrived at our house to care for little baby Hudson. Remember when? We would gather outside the chapel and envision the next generations of Amy Carmichaels and Hudson Taylors being trained inside that building. Remember when? We almost had possession of the campus twice, only to be hindered. Remember when? The vision for the School of Honor came forth and we knew we needed to go after the campus property with fresh gusto. Remember when? Eric, on a whim, purchased Ellerslie.com for $800. Remember when? We stood outside the chapel under the moon and unrelentingly asked God for the campus. Remember when? Gary was finally bent to the idea of leasing us the property. Remember when? Bex brought us to Dan and Sandy's house. Remember when? We finally met Bex's best friend, Grace. So Bex is Kip's bio mom. Remember when? Sandy switched out Eric's chocolate dessert for key lime pie. Remember when? Sandy first came on as Eric's assistant. Remember when? That one man said that Ellerslie was not a viable plan. And remember the faith that God had given us to stand fast. Remember when? Ben arrived on campus with a guitar in hand and a passion for discipleship in his heart. Remember when? Hudson preached his first sermon from the Ellerslie stage. Remember when? That February came and we were supposed to be without funds and somehow we had $32,000 in the bank. Remember when? God removed the thorn from our midst and suddenly the floodgates of student applications came pouring in and Ellerslie, as we now know it, was born. Remember when? We would gather for staff meetings in the girls' dorm with nothing but a bottle of Windex and a host of Macintosh computers to keep us company. Remember when? It was a couple days before the start of our inaugural semester and it appeared that we may not get access to the chapel, lake house, and Everett Center. Remember when? We simply ignored the 1,000 alarms that were sounding in our midst and we decided that like little children, we would simply trust our God. Remember when? Eric first stepped up onto the stage on May 31st, 2010. Remember the tears? Remember Hudson standing there watching? Remember the keynote slide that said 12 young men? Remember when? Remember how we wrestled for the power of the living God to come in our generation? Remember when? The time came for our very first baptisms in the lake. Remember when? Dan and Sandy used to actually live in the dorms. Remember when? We graduated our inaugural class. Remember the tears. Remember when? The power of reckoning with truth was brought into clear view. Remember when? Nathan Johnson came to Ellerslie as a student. He was already a teacher, but he came as a student in the second semester. We made the historic vote in the winter-spring semester, became a reality. Nathan won best laugh, Sandy won best hair, and Annie won best accent. Ben fell for one of our students. Remember? Looking around the room at each other and thinking, how did God get this group together? Oh, and remember when? Gary sat down with Eric at Alba's and said, so I'm shutting down my wedding business and I was wondering if you're still interested in the campus. Let's never fail to remember all the trials, difficulties, and testings along the way that only made us stronger. All the weapons fashioned against us that have not prospered. All the lives that our God has awakened and rescued in and through this work. And how ill-equipped we are to be doing that which we are doing. But above all, let's never fail to remember how faithful He has been. So guys, how do we extricate out an action out of this? Let's go and spend a day remembering. In fact, I would encourage you to make it more than just a day. Pull out some of those super precious stones of remembrance in your life and heap them up high in the living room of your soul. And then take a step back and look on the faithfulness of your God with fresh awe and wonder. This is the scripture that was at the very front of our very first book that we ever wrote. Isaiah 25:1. O Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you. I will give thanks to your name, for you have worked wonders, plans formed long ago with perfect faithfulness. Guys, we are so blessed. Right here. I know that many of you are feeling extreme heaviness in your life. You have extreme tensions, extreme challenges. This is the battle that we are in. But there's two ways of walking through this battle. You could walk through it defeated, injured, self-pitying, with a limp that is constantly, staring back at your challenges and wishing they could just be gone. Or meditating upon the goodness of God, remembering his faithfulness, cherishing the fact that he has carried you through every previous challenge. Will he not prove faithful yet again in this current challenge? Basking, remembering, saturating afresh in the goodness of your God. You could have the lens of defeat upon your life, which is what the enemy wants. He's like, wear these glasses, put these on, look at your life through this. Scrap those. You want the lens of faith, the lens of joy, the lens of mercy, the lens of redemption, that God always turns things for good. He always exceeds our greatest thoughts. He is very good at going before us and preparing the way. He always has that ram in the thicket. Always. So let's freshly remember the goodness of our God today. Father, this is for you. Thank you. We want to remember the days of old, for you are a faithful God. It's in the precious name of Jesus that we pray. Amen.